Well, welcome. Tonight, we're right in the middle of the election season, the silly season, as the ancients called it. But all kidding aside, we're going to talk about a candidate for a position that I'm on record, and I still believe it, is the most important decision that you'll make. If you have a child, for people like us who've gone through their children through high school, you're lucky to get a couple hours a day with them. The people on the school committee are going to set policy and determine what your children do, when they do it, and how they do it for 6 to 8 hours a day, and set them up to succeed or fail getting into colleges. I can't think of a more important decision than picking the 7 people. And this year we have 2 to pick who will determine that. On top of that, people who don't have children, the appeal of the school system is one of the biggest factors in determining the value of your home. So even if you don't have children or grandchildren in the school system, you ought to be thinking that you want somebody who will increase the confidence and the value of an education in Milford. So my hat's off. This year we have 5 people vying for 2 seats. As always, I'll never ask you to vote for a specific person, but I'll beg you to vote, and I'll plead with you to make sure that you become educated on who they are and you pick one that you feel comfortable with. So let's start with an introduction.
Okay. How are you doing, Al? My name is Mike Visconti. Born and raised in Milford, lived here all my life.
Now, Michael, I start, as you know, every political election show with one question, and I end with one question. Michael, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, I'm going to be blunt here. Quite frankly, I'm tired and I'm very frustrated of watching our school district deteriorate to a level never seen before in this town. I want to bring it back to the level it was at one time. And I want to make sure that every student, and I mean every student, leaves the Milford school system with a quality education consistent with their ability.
In your mind, are they getting a good education now?
I believe they are not. And the numbers back up my claims. Not the embellished numbers and the misinformation that comes out of the current school department and school administrators, okay? I'm talking about independent, third-party, unbiased numbers that show the Milford School District is underperforming. And what's worse, it is being outperformed by every single community around us.
Keep going.
Which is very frustrating. Every taxpayer in this town should be as frustrated and as angry as I am that we are paying, and they are paying, $60 million a year for an underperforming school system, school district, when every other surrounding town is outperforming Milford.
Now, when you say they're outperforming, what analytical data can we use?
Okay, we can look at numbers, clear statistical numbers. SAT scores, MCAS scores, our average. And now I know that people will say, well, you know, we had 5 people that got near perfect scores on the SATs. I could say, well, we also, and I'm speaking hypothetically, we also probably had 5 who barely scored at all on the SATs. Certainly, there's going to be students on both ends of the curve, if you will. We can't use those as examples to make our point. We need to look at the average. And right now, the average Milford SAT score does not even meet the benchmark that the College Board sets for a student who is deemed ready for secondary school or to seek other career opportunities in the workforce. That's not good. Every other community around us has higher average SAT scores and the performance on their MCAS far exceeds the Milford School District. I look at it this way, and I'll give you an example. You go to a fancy restaurant. You look at the menu. There's a nice porterhouse steak on there, okay? And, okay, $50. No big deal. I'll pay $50 for a nice porterhouse in a classy restaurant. The manager comes over and says, look, we got the best porterhouse in the state. You will love it. Fine, I'll order that. You sit back, you sip your wine, you wait. Now, here comes the server. Puts the plate down in front of you. What is it? A pile of hamburg. Now, you are outraged. I am outraged. Well, the taxpayers of Milford are plopping down $60 million for hamburg when they should be getting steak out of the school district. Every taxpayer in this town should be outraged, as I am. I believe that, and don't get me wrong, I'm an idealist. I mean, I'm a realist, not an idealist. I know that I can't fix this by myself, but with the voters' help at the polls on election day, we can start the process, and hopefully others will follow my lead and start the process to bring the Milford School District up to a point that we can all be proud of. Please do not listen to the misinformation coming out of the school department. Just the other night at a forum, they touted that, well, we send, I don't know how many students to secondary education after they graduate, and they were so proud of it. What they left out was that out of all the students that we send to secondary education, colleges, 2 4-year schools, fewer than 50%, 50%, complete their education in those secondary schools.
Seriously?
Fewer than 50%. Now, they won't tell you that. I'm telling you that. And those are hard and fast facts. That's what I deal with. I deal in facts. What they won't tell you is that percentage-wise, BVT, Blackstone Valley Tech, sends more students to secondary schools after graduation than Milford does.
Wouldn't you expect that? I mean, seriously, wouldn't you expect to get into BVT, you got to be in the top 10 or 15% of the Milford class?
Well, the percentage-wise, they send more. To me, that is unacceptable. I don't care what the entry requirements are. To me, that is unacceptable. And that is something that historically, going back 20, 30, 40 years, has not happened. This is relatively new under the current administration.
Well,
unacceptable.
Back then, I agree with you, because when we came out of 8th grade, if you were going to college, you went to Milford High. If you wanted to be a tradesman, you went to BVT. But it seems now, I mean, Dr. Fitz has done incredible with the students he's got. But later on, I want to ask a question of, are we really helping the whole student population at Milford High? Because if you're not good academically, but you're great with your hands, you ain't getting into BVT.
The main reason we go to school is for academics. Anything else, extracurriculars, trade classes, that's all above and beyond. Academics must come first. If we graduate students with a quality education and they are academically sound and able to compete with the students that are coming out of Medway, Hopedale, Millis, Hopkinton, they can do anything they want. They can go into a trade. You want to be a carpenter? You do what everybody has done for 100 years. You apprentice as a carpenter, you learn the trade. But I'm going to tell you something. If you can't count, if you can't add subtract, and multiply. You're not going to make it as a carpenter. I don't care how straight a line you can cut. Those are the basics you need to learn in school. And right now, our children, our students, are not being adequately prepared for after they graduate, those trades.
Now, what do you say to the people who point out that Milford, demographically, is very different from some of the towns you mentioned? That our top kids have the same, there's a bimodal Gaussian curves, that the top kids will stand up and compete with any kids from the neighboring towns, but the ELL and the large SPED population, they do the best they can, but they bring down the average. Is that accurate?
Well, let me give you an example. Lexington schools, routinely, year after year, ranked in the top 5 in the state, year after year, bar none, ranked in the top 5. Lexington has the second highest percentage of incoming English learners in the state. The second highest percentage, beat out only by North Quincy High. Now, both of those schools, Lexington, North Quincy, SAT scores off the charts. And I'm not talking a couple of kids on one end of the curve. I'm talking averages, because that's how you have to figure it. You can't pick and choose. I could say, well, you're a much better person than I am, and I'm a lousy person. But if we average them out, hey, the two of us together, not that bad, kind of in the middle. That's how you have to do it. You can't pick the best apple off the tree and say, look what we did, look what we have here. You cannot do it. You shake that tree and you grab all the apples and you say, look, we have a pile of apples here, and they're not bad.
So you're saying that the data that's been presented to us
misinformation
is not accurate.
Misinformation. At a recent forum I was at, they had a presentation on English learners coming into the school. And the statement was, it is increasing exponentially. Exponentially. So I said, wait a minute. And then they put a chart up on the screen. I'm looking at the chart, and I'm doing this in my head now, okay? Now, I'm not a math wizard, but I can see on the chart that, wait a minute, that's not exponential increase. That's maybe a 2 or 3% increase. Yeah, I'm doing this in my head now. So when they asked questions, I asked the question, I said, about why you're claiming exponential increase when, according to my calculations in my little brain here, and keep in mind that I lost 1/3 of my brain cells when I had my stroke, so I'm not that sharp when it comes to adding and subtracting.
Yeah, but Michael, exponential versus 2 or 5%, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out.
So so they reiterated that it's exponential. I said, well, and then finally, and I shouldn't have to have, I should not, I hope I wasn't badgering them, but finally got them to admit, well, no, it's not, it's significant. They went from exponential down to significant. They embellish their own numbers. Now, these are not third-party independent numbers. These are embellished in-house numbers to make you and I and all the taxpayers who open their wallets and fork over $60 million a year think that the students in Milford are getting a great education. Being underperforming. Here's the killer. Every year, review time comes. The administration is given flying colors for the great job they're doing. The great job they're doing for heading up an underperforming school district. Absolutely outraged. Every citizen in this town, taxpayer or not, should be outraged at what is going on in this school system. Outraged.
But yet, we hear, and I mean, I've got a jaundiced view, because I had 2 kids go through the school system, and they got into every college they applied to. And you hear that we're sending a large number of our top students, but that the average is brought down because you've got kids coming in under the ELL program or the SPED program that when you average their numbers, our averages go down.
That's true, they do go down, but our averages go up because of the top 10%. So it works both ways. That's why we talk in averages. You can't, I don't want to be redundant, you can't pick the best apple off the tree and use that as an example.
One of the things that we obviously want to talk about is school choice. You know, it used to be that it was pretty much break even, or at one point I remember, but I'm old, that we made money on school choice. There were more gazintas than gazautas. You know, that the people coming in outnumbered the people leaving. For the last, and I can't remember how many years, it's been $500,000 or so every year that we lose to school choice.
For the reasons I just stated, when you're being outperformed by other schools, other relatively local schools, you know, within 5-10 miles, heck, if I was going to school now, I would choice out of Milford School.
Really?
That is correct. If I wanted an education, if I wanted a quality education, I would choice out.
I'm struggling because all the data that's being presented to us is not consistent with that.
Who's presenting the data?
Well, the school committee.
Of course they are. You know, I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but the facts are the facts. And if you look strictly at the facts, and that's really what you have to, that's how you analyze something. You don't look at, when you're analyzing something, you don't look at conjecture, you don't look like maybes, you look at the facts. Here are the facts. And that's what you have to look at. You know that more than anybody.
And that's why I'm surprised, because when I think of Emily and Lexi's friends that graduated and went to college, I haven't heard that half of them flunked out or gave up. That's amazing.
Well, once again, you're looking at a small grouping of, you know, your daughter's friends. So
the N is small in the population. This is not an N of 100. I mean, I remember when we were told that the school population was increasing dramatically. And I started laughing, and they asked me, well, what's so funny? I said, well, Portuguese math doesn't support that. When I graduated, first class out of Milford High, it's 222 kids. Last year, we graduated 265.
How dramatic is that?
It's one kid per year.
Yeah, you know, once again, the numbers are being embellished to convince people who don't, I gotta be careful here, people who don't fully understand, or people who want to believe what they're being told.
Well, Michael, I mean, candidly, you put a bug in my ear saying 50% of our kids are getting into good schools and flunking out. That's very concerning. That's a scary movie.
Here's the reason that they're not being able to complete their secondary education. Simply because they're not being prepared sufficiently in the lower grades.
No, I understand what you're saying. I had never heard that kind of percentage. I mean, you know, if you told me a couple percent because of economics or whatever, yeah, I could believe that. I just have, and I'm going to ask the question to find the data, if it exists, as to how is it we're sending that many kids from Milford and they're not prepared? I mean, the good news is they're getting into good schools. But if they're not sticking...
See, it's like anything else. When you're in high school, you're a star if you get an A. All the teachers, may grade different. I know they were grading differently when I was in school, and that was a long time ago. They still grade differently. In some, you know, there are still kids who, oh, I want Mr. X because all I have to do is show up and I'll get a B+. If I show up and say good morning, I'll get an A. How do I get into that class? You know, I'm exaggerating slightly to make a point, but you know what I'm talking about, I believe.
We even had that in college.
Same in college, okay? What course? I'm not doing too well over here, but I want to bring my GPA up. So what class and what professor can I get into who's gonna help me out?
I remember sophomore year at Holy Cross, Leonard Selsky, probably the best professor I had at school, looked at about 6 of us and said, "Are you people out of your mind? You opted for me for a second year? You can go take McCarthy and get a B for doing nothing." But it was like, yes, because we learned. You know, you really did learn a lot from somebody who made you work.
So here's what happens. And it happens not only in academics, in sports also. Hey, you're a superstar on the football field in high school. And everybody's telling you, oh, you're going to be great. You're going to look how great you are. You get out of high school, you run into the Gronks of this world, okay, and the Bradys of this world, and you find out you're a bum. Same with academics. When you get out of high school and you find yourself having to compete with the likes of students who graduated from other local schools around here, and now you're competing, you know, not apples to apples, but you're competing with someone who has a higher quality education than you did.
Yeah, I mean,
you as a student should be outraged.
You really got
and I'm
me
not blaming the
thinking.
students, okay? I'm not blaming the students because the students, there isn't a student around that does not have the ability to get a quality education. Like I said, consistent with their ability, they should leave Milford schools.
And I'll grant you that my sampling is probably narrow and small. But, you know, again, I think of my oldest daughter left Milford High, got into 6 or 8 schools she applied, went to Clark. Now, her junior year, second semester, she had an off semester. She got a 3.95. But every other semester, she had 4.0. So I sit there and say, seems like she was prepared. Now, she had a buster tush, but it seems like she was prepared.
Well, here's how I feel about that. My son was the same way, and I don't want to. He would shoot me if he even though I mentioned my son. But I wondered. I don't anymore. That if the reason that some kids excel is simply because of their inherent ability, and not necessarily because how they're being taught or how they're being educated in the schools. I know that was true of my son. Okay, yeah, he learned something in school.
But you can't do that. That would hold water if it was you're taking a sampling of the top 5%.
True.
But if you're saying that 50% of the kids flunk out, then the demographics would wash that theory away. It can't be inherent. They can't inherently be set up to fail. They can't inherently 50%. That's close to 100 kids a year. That's amazing.
It's a lousy statistic. I will grant you that. You know, Hopkinton, Hopedale, Millis, Medway, Franklin send more students to 4-year private colleges, schools, universities than we do. On average. Percentage. Yeah, you got to go percentage because there's different.
Well, different. Yeah, Hopedale's got 80 kids.
Yeah, you know. So you got to. In this case, you have to talk in percentages. Still, a devastating statistic.
So, Michael, you get on the school committee. What's the 3 biggest challenges you're going to take on?
Number 1, we're going to demand performance from our administrators. Yeah, you're coming to me with all these new and new courses and new programs. Here's what I want you to tell me. Here's what your goal is going to be. Boost the average SAT score in high school way above the benchmark set by the College Board and way above any other surrounding town. That's your goal. Meet that goal, I'm happy. Don't come to me and say, "Oh, look, we're going to add this program and that program." I don't know if that's going to end. The end result is going to be a higher quality education by the numbers. That's why I don't care what you add. Tell me the numbers are going up. That's your goal. Here's the problem. One of the problems. Once again, the administrators continue to get high marks on their reviews every year for the goal, because they met their goal. Yeah, because my goal tonight is, when we're done, is to walk out that door, get in my car and drive home. Now if I do that, gee, I met my goal. That wasn't a very hard goal to meet, was it? Now, if I said, when I leave here tonight, I'm gonna get up, walk out that door, I'm gonna fly home without my car. Can I, now, gee, that's a little bit higher standard. Can't meet it. If I meet it, I'm a hero. You would be amazed. You'd probably pay to see that happen.
But somewhere in between the two is reality. So I guess the question becomes, we could say I want perfect scores from every kid. That ain't gonna happen. What's reasonable in your mind to hold the administration as a standard? You're saying today's test scores don't cut the mustard. What would you say would be a reasonable standard to hold them to?
At least meet the benchmark set by the College Board. At least meet that. We are not even meeting that. Outrageous. Outrageous. Not even meet, and we haven't met that for the past 10 years, maybe 15 years. I would have to check my numbers.
So who do you hold accountable for that?
The administrators, of course. I don't hold the kids accountable for the students.
No, but superintendent?
On down.
On down
On
to
down.
Teachers, or do you stop at principals? I'm just curious as to, it's always easy to say they should fix it. In your mind, who's they?
Who are these they people?
Yeah.
Superintendent, assistant superintendent, principals, administrators, all the way down. I don't want to get in trouble with the teachers, because they're probably doing the best they can with what they have to work with the curriculum they have, with the equipment they have. I don't know. But I will say this. It's not so much the quality of the tools as it is the ability of the instructor, okay?
Okay.
Case in point, Wayland, up until a few years ago, Wayland high schoolers were operating out of a building that was built in the early 60s. The early 60s. Now they've since upgraded, but up until a few years ago, and consistently ranked in the top 5 schools in the state. Consistently ranked. I don't want to even tell you how old Boston Latin building is, okay? I don't even want to go there. Every year, #1 in the state. And by the way, this year, let me reach back here. This year, 48th in the country, Boston Latin. Now that's a pretty good number. 48th in the country.
So what are we going to do, in your mind, to get back on track?
Once again, I'm not a teacher. I'm a manager, I'm a stat guy, and I'm a budget guy. Put the people heading up the system on notice. Get these numbers up. I don't want to say or else, but get these numbers up.
Now, as a budget guy, top line question. Are we spending enough per student on our kids?
Good question. By the way, Lexington, North Quincy High, all with SAT scores through the roof, spend less per student than we do. Spend less per student. Here's talking about budgets, okay? We need to get the budget under control. We need to stop the irresponsible, uncontrolled spending in the school district. Example, recently, a many $1,000 contract was awarded to a solar panel provider without any competitive bidding, simply because a slick sales guy went to the school committee and sold them a bill of goods that this was the opportunity of a life. Snake oil sales guy. This is the opportunity of the lifetime that'll never come around again.
Now, wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought any major capital purchase either is off a state bid list or has to be bid. Are you saying that that wasn't followed?
It was not. It was not. And I talked to some school committee members about it, and some of them said, yeah, I did not agree with that. We should not have just given it to this guy, to this.
But wait a minute, that's against, I thought, that's
Well,
against the law.
I don't know. Let's you
Okay.
mentioned the state bid list. Now there's a misconception about this state bid list. There's no requirement that even if the town does a project, for example, the sound system of the town hall, they said, well, this is the only person on the state bid list, so we kind of got to go with them. Wrong answer. I've helped people get on the state bid list. Here's what the state bid list is. It's a list of contractors who are interested in, okay, I'm interested in doing sound systems of this nature. I'm interested in doing brickwork of this nature. There's no statement from the state that says, these are the guys you have to use. Pick from one of these. You know how you get on the state's bid list? I've helped people get on. Fill out a couple of papers. Yeah, I'm interested in putting in sound systems. Here's my background. Here's what I do. Okay, you're on the list. Now, when jobs come up, okay, Hopedale, Mendon, Millis, we are in need of a sound system for our library or whatever. Let's check the state bid list. Oh, look, Al's on the list, Mike's on the list. Do we have to use either Al or Mike? Well, no, we can,
You can send it out to bid.
Send it out to bid. We don't have to use those people that are on the state bid. Misunderstanding and misconception of what the state bid list is. So, once again, don't be led around by what you hear from the people who tell you what they want you to hear. And by the way, I'm not one of those. I deal in facts. If I have a fact wrong, which I believe I do not, at least not what I've stated tonight, please let me know. I'm a detail guy. I do my research. I usually come prepared for a meeting. I won't say usually. I'm always prepared as I can be. I'm not that bright a guy. Okay? I struggle. And speaking of struggling, I struggle to make ends meet like a lot of people like a lot of residents in Milford out there. And they, once again, I don't want to be redundant, but I'm outraged that I have to struggle to make ends meet dollar-wise. But I'm dumping in, not all myself, but I'm dumping in $60 million to have the school department give out contracts without having them competitively bid just because someone tells them, oh, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I think the guy was used to be a used car sales guy too. No, I'm just kidding about that, of course. Outrageous.
But now, is our budget set up correctly? I mean, there's 4 parts to the school budget. There's the health insurance that's paid by the town.
By the town.
There's the bonding, what people refer to as the mortgages on all the buildings. Then you have ELL and SPED, and then you have the operational budget. So the health insurance and all paid for by the town, negotiated by the town. When we look at the bonds, negotiated by the town's financial director. ELL and SPED is a net increase. Only once out of 12 years did it go down. But every year we say, okay, last year you spent $100. What are you going to spend this year? And if it's 105, then we allocate the $5. And the logic is to protect the typical budget, because otherwise you'd have to take out a typical. So typical budget has always been 2 point something, at least for the last few years. Are we set up right, or should we consider changing it?
Here's how I look at it. Here's $10. You spend it however you want. You can order pizza every day if you want for yourself. But all you're going to get is $10. You make everything work with that $10. You're not going to get any more. Now make it work. See, these people have never been called to task on these things. They need to be.
But Michael, how so? Every year we get into this war, we say, you have 2-point-something% on your operational budget. That's all you got. You can argue because, you know, they'll talk, well, we want all these programs, great idea. But you still only have 2-point-something%. The numbers last year, year before, everybody looks at 4 or 5 because the SPED number goes up. But
find that money somewhere in the rest of the budget. Make it work. It can be done. Find it. I prepared numerous multi-million-dollar budgets for all kinds of financial organizations, and I was called to task. I had to go into the room. If I wanted $10, you tell me why you need this $10, and it better be a good argument. And we want to see the facts. School committee knows that, oh, we want more money, no big deal. We'll go and cry in front of the FinCom, and they'll approve it. They'll say, yeah, okay.
But when did that happen?
It happens almost every year, pretty much.
Well, then
I'm
missing it.
By the way, the school department came before the FinCom at a recent meeting, and the administrators had the gall to blame the town for the choicing out, taking no responsibility whatsoever.
How is the
I almost fell over my seat.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. How's the town
would not elaborate, and it kind of got glossed over. They said, well, it's really the town's fault for all this choicing out. Once again, outrageous. Took no responsibility whatsoever for them.
No, I've never heard that, candidly. They've never said that to me because I'd turn around and say, wait a minute, town does not dictate school policy. So if anybody can affect it, it's the school committee. I didn't know that people thought the town could affect school choice.
I'm not going to mention names.
Okay.
One of the town administrators piped up and said it's the town's fault for the choicing out. Deflecting any responsibility.
One of the town or school administrators?
School.
School, okay.
Yeah.
So now, every year, I mean, it always starts with the dang mating ritual of finance committee saying we're destitute, school committee saying they need, 6-8%, and somewhere it comes out, SPED and LL aside, 2-point-something%. What else? I mean, they may want 6, but they end up with 2-point-something at least the last few years. That's all they've gotten.
But that's an old budget trick, by the way.
How so?
Our water company does it to us every year. Ask for 50 when you only need 25.
Yes.
And then make it sound like you made a huge concession. Wrong answer.
But I guess I'm one of the old school that I get criticized for saying, no, you get 2-point-something. The only question we're going to argue is the point-something. But what do we do to change that? I mean, we got citizens calling for a real financial audit. Let me ask you 2 questions. One, our previous barrister has said we get a financial audit every year. Is it a real audit? And number 2, should we be spending $30,000 to $50,000 on a real audit?
It depends. Now, you may recall it was not that long ago that thousands of dollars went unaccounted for in the school budget. Now, when I say unaccounted for, the money was there, but nobody knew what it was spent on. And that was not that long ago.
That's when they charged the wrong line item.
Well, once again.
No, I remember because it was a huge amount of money. It was not $50 or $100 or, it was $70,000 that they were charging to a budget line, not school choice.
Once again, had the money, but no one knows what it was spent on. Now, here's what that tells me. Wait a minute. If you got caught this time, how many times did it get by us? Did it get by you? Did it get by me? Did it, it raises a red flag, which means that maybe we do need an audit. And they'll well, we review. Don't tell me it's a review. A review is nothing.
Right.
A review. I've handled many reviews. I've been reviewed many times. All they do is come in, The CPA will come in and just say generally, yeah, they're kind of doing things the right way. Yeah, the invoices come in here. Yeah, they go through here. They're this.
They don't have the same person
The same
paying
person
that
write the
issues-
check, doesn't
right.
sign, you know, all the. But do they look at any transactions?
Well,
No.
that's a real audit.
That's an audit. So maybe, and once again, I'm not saying definitively we should have an audit. Maybe we need one. Maybe we need one. What will we find? Here's the other question. Why would anybody, other than shelling out the money to have the audit, why would anybody object to an audit? Ask yourself that question.
Well, I can think of two reasons. One is the cash, that you don't want to take the money out of their budget.
Accepting that.
And I'll accept that by saying, if we should have an audit, it should come out of the FinCom budget. We have money every year to do special things. I could be very comfortable with saying, we'd like to see a real audit under our control, you know, that the FinCom picks the auditor, not the school department, and we pay for it. That's number one. Number two, an audit takes a lot of time.
Depend on how I've been involved in audits where every single transaction was looked at. Every single transaction for the entire year was looked at, and there were many transactions. And if it was a transaction that involved any kind of building or maintenance or construction, there was a field review to cross-check that transaction, show me, here, okay, this transaction, $1,000 for, I don't know, a widget on this building. I want to go see it. I want to see that widget on that building. That's the kind of audit that, if there's anything going on, it will be found out.
So you're comfortable with calling for an audit?
Well, once again, I'm thinking that there are things that happened in this town that the town's audit, yearly audit, did not pick up on. And I'm saying, wait a minute. Didn't this guy look at this? Once again, even me, average Joe, not too bright, I can see the discrepancy in that. How come that was not picked up? No, here's the letter. Here's the letter, Selectman. Here's the letter of you are the best in the world, okay? Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I gotta laugh. And we pay for it. And we say, oh, Al, you did our audit for the past few years. You know all the people, first name basis. Here, we're gonna give you 20, 30 grand again this year. Go do another one.
Yeah, but isn't that a reason? I mean, I hate to be cold, but
Kind of getting off track here, but.
But isn't that a reason not to have the same auditor?
Absolutely. That's why I would say, look, we're going out to bid this year, and there's if we can do it, we have to talk to town council. And the stipulation is, we cannot have the same auditor for 2 years in a row. Put it out to bid, see what comes in.
Okay.
Let's do things the right way. Let's convince the taxpayers that we're protecting their money, that we're protecting them, and that they are getting their money's worth.
And candidly, that's the only reason that I would call for an audit, was not to say, I want to gut you, but to say, look, we should come out of an audit feeling good about the way our money is spent. If the school committee's doing a good job, then the auditor should come back and say, you're doing well.
I would relish an audit. Say, look, this is going to show you how good I am at doing this stuff. You know, yeah, go on. I dare you. Try to find something wrong with what I do. Try it. See what happens. So that's what I'm saying. Why would anybody object to it, other than having to pay for the audit? Why would anybody object?
If we take that off
I can think
the
of one
table.
reason. I can think of one reason. Gee, you know, this money I might have thrown over here when it was supposed to go here. And maybe, I'm not saying this is happening, don't get me wrong, I don't want people to shoot me for this, but maybe, oh look, yeah, okay, well look, there's $1 there. You know what? I'm going to put half $1 in my pocket over here that nobody knows about.
Yeah, you know,
I'm not even insinuating that happens.
I hear you. It's just the character of the people we have, they don't feel like, you know, the send Mikey to Bermuda fund was, but talk to me about, we've been asking for a long-range ed plan for quite a bit of time. And I just saw in the paper the other day that a long-range building plan has come out. Does that seem backwards to you? Or?
It does. I believe what was originally presented was a combination long-range education and long-range building plan consolidated together, which made no sense because there was really no distinction and very difficult to track and comprehend what was going on. A long-range education plan should precede a long-range building plan.
I agree.
How in the world do you know if you're going to need another Woodland in 20 years or 5 years if you don't have a long-range education plan? That should come first.
Yeah, I'm kind of perplexed at, number one, the fact that I haven't seen a long-range ed plan. Supposedly it exists.
Nor have I. Nor have I.
But the paper has details about building a new high school or renovating a high school in 6 years. Then doing another Stacy or Memorial 5 years later. And I'm kind of stuck because I don't understand, one, why. I mean, I can say Milford High's old, but that to me is not a justification for a $100 million investment.
I'll go one step further. Old and poorly maintained. How's that? Old and poorly maintained. Now, let me tell you this as a little side story. There was a forum up at the high school last year for the candidates for school committee. Mm-hmm. I attended it, and in a fairly conspicuous spot, with my finger, I wrote my initials in the dust. Okay? Now, I was up there a month or so ago, and other than a little coating of dust from this past year, you could still make out my initials.
Seriously?
Yes. I won't say goodness, honest truth, okay? You could still make, now I'm saying, wait a minute, if this is allowed to go. Now, on the other side of the coin, I had a meeting, a big annual meeting I had to go to down at Keith Tech. They had all the food, in hors d'oeuvres laid out on tables. As far as I'm concerned, no need for the tables because you could eat off the floor. Tables were a waste. You could eat off the floor down there. I mean, the shine would blind you. There wasn't a speck of dirt to be found anywhere down there. Now, if they can do it, why can't we do it? Periodically, they'll clean the dust out of the trophy cabinet. Periodically, not often enough, but a disgrace. Preventive maintenance, continued maintenance. Don't come to me 25 years from now and say, oh, we need a whole new building because Woodland is now falling down. Yeah? Show me the maintenance record. Show me the preventive maintenance plan, which is a legitimate preventive maintenance plan. Show me the monthly reporting on that preventive maintenance plan that details not only what was planned to have been done, but in fact, here's the check, it was done, with a narrative saying what was done, what was found, if it was found defective, how it was corrected. Show me that. Then I'll gladly shell out the money. Look, I'm not afraid of shelling out the money, okay? I'll dig it up somewhere to shell out the money for a good value, okay? But I'm not going to shell out $60 million for Hamburg. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I have to do it, but I don't want to do it.
So now we start looking at some of the places we really spend a lot of money. SPED, ELL, and there's been, you're at town meeting, you've heard people talk about how the fact that we're building up such a great SPED program attracts people to Milford. The fact that we're building up such a strong ELL program attracts people to Milford. Do you believe that's true?
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Other communities have strong ELL programs. Case in point, the one I mentioned earlier, Lexington. Maybe they have a strong program because they have the second highest percentage of incoming English learners. Rated, I'm trying to be redundant now, but it just irks me that with those weights on their shoulder, still consistently every year, top 5 in the state, ranked the top 5 in the state schools.
Well, that's something I'm going to ask again. You're giving me questions to ask because we're always told that you can't compare us to towns around us because they don't have the same demographics. They have much less ELL or SPED students. But you're saying there's towns with the same demographics.
Might not be right next door to us, but they're still towns, they're still schools, and they still have a higher percentage of course, if you talk to the administrators in the school, they'll tell you that our ELL population is increasing exponentially. At that rate, we should have just shy, we should have just shy of 2 million ELLs in the school, okay? Exponentially.
That must be an emotional reaction because again, like
well, what I said was, look, I said, look, I'm going to assume that when you use the term exponentially, it was merely a figure of speech, which some people do, okay, just to make a point.
Well, it has to be. It can't be a mathematical operator
Well,
because there's a definition
they
for exponential
reaffirmed
growth.
that no, it's until I finally got them to say, well, it's significant. Got them down to significant. From exponentially, I got them down to significant. What's significant?
So in your mind, it's not the ELL population we have that's dragging down the school averages. It's the programs?
It's got to be the programs. You gave them, they came crying to the FinCom. Oh, look at the ELLs we got coming in. Okay, let's open. So what does the FinCom do? Opens all the I hope the taxpayers are listening. Opens all the taxpayers' wallets. Opens all their wallets, okay? Here you go. Here's the hundreds of thousands you need, whatever. Now what's your excuse? We gave you the money. You said you needed the money to solve the problem. We gave you the money. Problem is still here. Now you're crying the problem is still here? Unacceptable. In a business world, okay, those people would be in the unemployment lines.
Well, I remember, one thing you're saying that I can remember is when the MCAS scores first were low, the previous superintendent, Dr. Berardi, came and said, if you give me $1 million, I'll fix the MCAS problem.
Of course. Is it fixed? Not even close.
No, but the $1 million went there.
Yeah. Because the thought process, the current thought process is, got a problem? Throw money at it. Throw money at that problem, okay? Because we can fix it if we throw more money at it. Open your wallet, Al, open your wallet, throw money at that problem and we can fix it. But we don't. We didn't fix it. You know why? Because the money wasn't the problem. It was the implementation of the programs or the programs themselves that were the problem. So I get carried away because I get so irked with what's going on with our school system.
Being emotional, and I have no reason to question your facts, but if those are the facts, I can tell you that tomorrow I make a phone call because 50% failure scares the living heck out of me.
If I slipped up on one of my facts, please let me know.
Well, no,
and I will research
I'll find
it
out.
And I will issue a correction.
But 50%, if you said, well, it was 18% and it turns out 16, that's a slip. 50% is something that we as a town should be outraged at if half our kids are failing college.
Now, I'm talking, just to be clarified, I'm talking 4- and 2-year schools,
yes.
Okay? We have a better completion rate on the 4-year schools than we do on the 2. So once again, we're talking averages here. So now the 2-year college programs are dragging the average down a bit,
okay.
But the 4 years are dragging it up. In any case, it's an average, and a disgusting average.
But Michael, anyway you shake 50%, If you said 30%, I don't know that I'd be less concerned. You know, it's amazing, but you've given me food for thought. But now we've come to a point where, Michael, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Once again, I am frustrated and tired of watching our school district deteriorate to a level that is unacceptable, both to me and it should be to all the taxpayers and the voters out there. I will work hard to turn that around. Now, granted, I cannot fix this by myself, but with the voters' help at the polls, I can start the process to get our schools back up to a level that is conducive with the quality of the people in our town, and a level that everybody will be satisfied with and will not mind shelling out 60 mil. See, if you get a good value for your dollar, fine. You know, go spend 70, 80, 90 grand for a vehicle, for a car. No problem, as long as you're getting a good value out of it.
Yeah, but not a Hyundai.
Value for the dollar.
Right.
By the way, you mentioned Hyundai. In my opinion, right now, the best value for the dollar out there. Now, they're not expensive.
Well, they're not 90 grand. You wouldn't spend 90 grand on it.
But the value you get for that dollar is unmatched anywhere. Now, I have to qualify that because my wife drives a Hyundai.
But you didn't pay $90,000 for a Hyundai.
I didn't pay anything for it. Took it out of her allowance.
Okay, well, thank you
But
for
please,
all your years of service, from planning to town meeting to everything you've done. We really do need people to step up and help the town.
I want to help. I want to help. I will do my best. I will work hard. I promise you. I promise everybody out there, I will work hard to get this, not to maintain the school district, to improve the school district.
And as always, I started the show by saying, please become educated on each candidate, even if it's only 10 minutes, whether you watch the show, whether you go to the senior center, you go to the town crier, there's a myriad of different ways of getting to know the candidates. But get to know them, and then I'll beg you, get out and vote. This is the, and again, only my opinion, but this is the most important position in this town. No slight to the selectmen, but these people are going to dictate the future of our children. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home.